This is a recording of the lecture for section 4.3, Using Studies Wisely. We begin by talking about the fact that we do studies, and studies include both experimental and observational studies, but what are the limits of what we can say about the results of those studies? We talk about that in terms of what's referred to as the scope of influence. Um, the scope of influence depends upon a couple of things having to do with the nature and the design of the study. We say that well-designed experiments randomly assign individuals to treatment groups. Okay. Um, and that is going to be a crucial indicator about the quality and the scope of influence of the study. Um, and where we draw the participants for that study has another big saying. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to break this down into two yes or no questions. Were individuals randomly assigned to groups? Now, if the answer to that is yes, one, we know that we have um, an experiment because we have treatment groups, okay? And two, it's a well-designed experiment because they're randomly assigned to the individual treatment groups, okay? The second question that we ask is, were the individuals randomly selected? How did we select which individuals were going to be in the study? If the answer to that is yes, if we get double yeses, what we simply say is we can we can infer from this experiment onto a greater population, and because the individuals were randomly assigned, that we can establish a cause and effect relationship. The answers to these two questions lead us to how much scope of inference we have. If you didn't select people randomly and you didn't assign them to treatment groups, i.e., you have an observational study, there's not much you can say. You say, yeah, I got some information and it applies to those people, and I can't establish cause and effect. Let's take a look at this situation under a set of examples here. Go to the next page. It says, many students insist that they study better when listening to music. A teacher doubts this claim and suspects that listening to music actually hurts academic performance. Here are four possible studies to address this question. In each case, the response variable will be the student's GPA at the end of the semester. For each design, suppose that the mean GPA of students who listened to music while studying was significantly lower than the mean of the GPAs for those who did not listen to music. Um, so design number one, all the students in your AP statistics class participate in the study, and we ask them whether they study with music on and divide them into two groups based on that. Um, what's our conclusion? Um, the conclusion, uh, first of all, only applies to the AP Stats students. There was the only group of people that were studied, um, and therefore our conclusion, because it's just everyone in that group, um, we have a limited inference onto that. Okay. What about cause and effect? A cause and effect relationship will not um, be able to be able to be established. And why is that? Because there was not random assignment of treatments. In fact, there were no treatments at all. It was an observational study. All right. Design number two, select a random sample of students from your school to participate in the study, then to divide them into two groups as in design one. Well, the conclusion of this study the conclusion applies to all students at our school because they were selected randomly through that population. But as I said before, the cause and effect cannot be established. And why? Because there was not the random assignment of treatments. All right, design number three. Get all the students in your AP Statistics class to participate in the study. Randomly assign half of the students to listen to music while studying for the entire semester and have the remaining half abstain from listening to music while studying. Well, in this case, the conclusion um, only applies to the AP Stats students. Not all AP Stats students, only the AP Statistics students at our school. But in this case, cause and effect can be established because treatments were randomly assigned. So we can say, yeah, it really does look like listening to music hurts GPAs, but we can say that's only seems to be true, at least based on this study, with AP Stats students who were randomly assigned. Okay, fourth design. This is the best one. Um, select a random sample of students from your school to participate in the study, randomly assign them to either a music group or in the non-music group. And in this case, the conclusion applies to the entire school. And cause and effect can be established because the treatments were randomly assigned. Okay, great. We are going to shift up a little bit and basically say, this idea of establishing causation is really, really important to us. Says a well-designed experiment tells us that changes in the explanatory variable causes the changes in the response variable. Lack of realism could limit our ability to apply the conclusions of the experiment to the setting of greatest interest. Sometimes it isn't practical or ethical to do an experiment, consider these questions. Does texting while driving increase the chance of getting in an accident? Well, it sure seems to me like that would be unethical. If we think that it would increase the probability of getting in an accident, then forcing people to text while they're driving, imposing that treatment, would cause accidents and cause harm. It'd be unethical. Does going to church regularly help people live longer? Well, that situation, can we force people to go to church? Not in our country. Does smoking cause lung cancer? Again, we think, or we've been told that smoking causes lung cancer, but how would we design a study to that? Well, it would mean that we would force some people to smoke and we'd have to keep other people from smoking. That causing people to smoke, forcing people to smoke, is problematic, especially if we think that smoking really does cause cancer. So, but you're like, wait a second, we have on multiple occasions in multiple ways said that smoking causes cancer. How can we establish that if we can't do an experiment? Well, when you can't do an experiment, we can use these criteria to establish causation. First of all, is the association strong? Do we see that amongst people who smoke, higher incidences of lung cancer as compared to people who don't smoke? Now, that's an observational study. That alone is not enough to establish causation. But do we also say that that association is consistent? No matter what era or what region of the country we look at, do we continue to see this particular association? Item number three, are larger values of an explanatory variable associated with stronger responses? Not only do we see that people who smoke get cancer more, but we see that people who smoke more get cancer more. So that would be, we'd have to establish that. Does the alleged cause precede the effect in time? Do we see the cancers only after the smoking starts happening? And the last one, is the alleged cause plausible? Have we established through other means the idea that maybe the chemicals in cigarette smoke are carcinogenic? And we could do that using animal experiments and things like that. So it is true that when we can't do an experiment, we can still establish cause and effect if we meet these other five criteria. And as we said before, in terms of smoking and causing lung cancer, we see that the association is strong, consistent, larger values in explanatory variable associated with stronger responses. It comes precedes in time, and the alleged cause, because we've done animal experiments on cigarette smoke, and we can see that it indeed causes cancerous tumors. Last thing, um, data ethics. When we do an experiment, we can't just do anything we want to people or objects. Um, and so, but especially when we're dealing with people, there are all kinds of ethical guidelines that should be followed when doing these experiments. Our basic ethics include that all of our experiments should be reviewed by a review board to make sure they're not going to put anyone into harm. All the individuals need to have informed consent, and they know what they're getting themselves into when they sign up for the experiment. And the individual data must be kept confidential, meaning that if we publish the study, individual values, individual people who participate in the study can't be identified. They only their aggregate numbers can show up. So there's our conclusion from section 4.3.